Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Well, a UN report released last month on terrorism has warned that there are significant numbers of ISIS terrorists in Kerala and Karnataka, noting that the al-Qaida in the Indian Subcontinent terror group, which reportedly has between 150 and 200 militants from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Myanmar, is planning attacks in the region. Karnataka Home Minister Basavaraj Bommai said that the UN report on ISIS terrorist activities in Karnataka is based on the arrests made by the state police and the National Investigation Agency in the past year. On July 13th, the NIA had filed a charge sheet against 17 ISIS suspects who had allegedly formed a terror group named Al-Hind to carry out terrorist attacks in South India, especially in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. More recently, on August 18th, the NIA arrested a doctor, Abdur Rahman, for his alleged links with the banned terrorist outfit Islamic State Khorasan Province, an offshoot of ISIS. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze southern India's links with terror. Joining me on the program today are Navneet Vasan, former DG, National Investigative Agency, Anil Chaudhary, former Secretary, Internal Security, Ministry of Home Affairs, and Major General Dhruv C. Katoch, retired Director, India Foundation. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Mr. Vasan, I'd like to begin the program with you. The NIA has been extremely active, especially in South India, trying to bust several modules over the years. We've seen hectic terror activity, people connected to terrorist groups, especially the ISIS. What is the main reason behind this? Why is it happening so rampantly?
See, it has come to our notice when I was in NIA that a lot of people travel to Middle East and other countries from South India. That has been, you have a large population of persons who originate from South India, travel to these countries for employment, for other vocational their requirements. So therefore, they have some kind of shelter or some kind of places available to stay in Middle East countries from where they travel to ISIS affected countries and set up their links. And there are some people based in South India who are constantly on lookout for soft targets whom they can brainwash, whom they can indoctrinate, and then use them within the country to carry out their nefarious activities. I think that's one of the main reasons. And second, earlier also, long ago, in one of the programs in Rajya Sabha TV only I mentioned, unfortunately, we have not been able to start the de-radicalization exercise in a big way, which is need of the hour. We have to identify people who are likely to be brainwashed, especially in colleges, in schools, and then join these kind of groups and get into wrong side of the activities and indulge in these kind of terrorist activities or support terrorist activities.
Right. So, Mr. Chaudhary, let me bring you to the picture now. So we're talking about radicalization, we're talking about being brainwashed. Where do these activities really happen? Is it within India? Is it outside? How is it that certain people are soft targets? How are they identified? How is this indoctrination carried out really?
Frank, radicalization is on the rise in South India. That is correct. But I do not wish to paint a very gloomy picture. Radicalization has been on the rise. ISIS's reach in India is very limited. Out of 150 in Bangladesh, Pakistan and India, I think much less than 100 they are doing. See, they do talent spotting. The ISIS agents and sympathizers in Kerala, mainly Kerala, in South, it is the hub. Less in Tamil Nadu. On the rise in Karnataka, Hyderabad is very limited. They are being radicalized. Radicalization, unfortunately, is due to a perception of the community being wronged and have been at the receiving end. So they look for people who are already convinced that this community has been wrong and it can be made right only by the rule of Allah. So that is the fundamental issue. It's not as though de-radicalization is easier said than done.
The points taken. Let me take the points that you're making forward with the general now. So general, as far as this particular issue is concerned, we're talking about radicalization. We are talking about how certain people are susceptible and how there are easy prey really as far as those who want to radicalize are concerned. So, is there any particular age group, any type of people that are specifically susceptible? College students? Where is it that it actually happens?
Frank, let me give you a perspective which may be slightly different to what my colleagues have stated. Now, very correctly stated that there is money power which is involved, and especially when the Gulf oil, when the prices shot up, that was the time when a lot of Saudi money and money from the Gulf actually came into the region, and we saw a mushrooming of madrasas. And it is also correct to state that we've got a large number of people from the south who go and work in the Gulf. We've got millions of workers there, and some portion of them do are susceptible and are vulnerable. But I think the fundamental problem actually lies within India. And I would like to bring this to attention because for very long, we refused to see the writing on the wall. And I will relate it to an example of Kashmir. But first, I want to tell you what exactly is the problem. When we look at independence, when India got independence, there were less than 100 madrasas which are operating in India. The number which has been given is about 88, but let us take a figure below 100. This mushroomed into approximately 3 lakh by 2006, and today the figure is something like 3 to 4 million. I really don't know if a proper count has been carried out. Now, there is no problem per se with what a madrasa teaches. But when a madrasa starts teaching Wahhabi ideology, I think there is a very serious problem. And this starts right at childhood. So here is a young child who's 5 to 6 years old, or 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, and he goes into that madrasa and he is taught. And what is the fundamental thing which is being taught in the Deobandi Wahhabi school? And even in fact, when you go to Deoband in India and you see their books, it is very clearly stated in their books that our goal is to kill the infidel, right? That if a Muslim kills a non-Muslim, he's so entitled to by law. It is the will of Allah. You can take what you want by the sword. Now, I think this is a very dangerous teaching which has crept into the children. Now, people say it doesn't matter. Fine, it doesn't matter. But please see what happened in Kashmir in 1990. When we talk of the movement which people call it as a movement for Azadi, what happened in 1990 was never a fight for Azadi. At that point of time, the Indian army was not deployed in Kashmir. At that point of time, the CRPF and the BSF and other forces were not there. It was only the J&K police which was looking after the situation. And what happened in 1990 was a genocide which took place of the minority Hindu population. Now, why did that take place? Because there were Kashmiri Hindus there. They were not outsiders to have even given the semblance of an excuse as to why that occurred. They were the local people who had been living there for thousands of years, and they were taken out. And this was the result of Wahhabi ideology, which has been brilliantly written about in a book called The K File, the Kashmir File. And I think this is a book which every person needs to read and understand how this ideology permeated in the 60s, picked up pace in the 70s and 80s. It was left unchecked deliberately, and we saw a genocide taking place in 1990. Now, all that we need to do to curb this, de-radicalization is a very difficult process. But I think if you can change the education syllabus and teach our children the right things from a younger age, then there's no reason for them to get radicalized. Now, here we have got a very large target population which has been exposed to this form of teaching. And out of that large population, there will be some people who will become vulnerable. So you get a very large base. From amongst this large base, you can recruit people. Please see the example of Pakistan. Why has that society become radicalized? Please see the example of Bangladesh, where countermeasures have been taken, and you see the difference between these two countries. I was absolutely astonished when one of the Pakistani legislators in the floor of their house actually made a statement. He says, forget about Pakistan turning into, or Naya Pakistan turning into Venice. If we can become like Bangladesh, it will be a great achievement. Now, what I'm really talking about is, please catch the children young. Please see that the people, the literature which is taught to them, or the ideology which is taught to them, you may teach your religion. I have no problem with that, but don't preach hate. Once you start preaching hate of the other, that becomes unconsciously imbued in the mind of the child. And when that child grows up, he will not be, unless he is exposed to a counter view, I think he will continue with this view. I think this is something which we fail to see even today, but we need to take it very seriously if you wish to address this issue, which I feel is a very serious issue, and it cannot be taken lightly. It may be small today, but the cancer will keep growing unless we address it now.
Okay. Let's take this issue of de-radicalization forward now. So, Mr. Vasan, what are the kind of activities that are taking place as far as de-radicalization is concerned? How do we address the problem? The general spoke about catch them young and, teach them the right things from an early age. But what happens when several people have already been radicalized?
See, I fully agree with the general. What he said, I endorse it fully. But you see, unfortunately, my experience of investigation have revealed that most of the people who have become radicalized and gone to these countries, Syria and other countries, and participated, are supported, or have, kind of set up groups in South India, most of them are very well educated. They are doctors, they are engineers, they are graduates, they are postgraduates, and they are not one of those who have got education in madrasas and come up, the hard way. Now, some of these people come from very good families. So when I said de-radicalization, most of the countries, Western countries, have also started these programs in colleges because, all over the world, that is the experience that some of these operators are coming from, a very good backgrounds, and they're not coming from poor or, the lower strata of the society. So we need to identify such people in colleges and then maybe sit down, interact with them. And it cannot be done by police officers. Let me tell you, it's not a job of a police officer. It is job of teachers. It is job of civil society. You have to interact with them. They have so-called perceived notion of, as Mr. Anil Chaudhary said, that they have been wronged. So they have to be told. They have to be, educated and made aware that if anything wrong is happening, they perceive, they have, genuine recourse available where they can come and get their grievances settled. So all those exercise has to be done, and this is a very specialized kind of a work which cannot be done by, I repeat, by police officers or law enforcement authorities. They had to be done by specialized people who are very well trained in these kind of activities. That's my view.
Right. So, Mr. Chaudhary, taking this particular aspect forward, it's a very interesting aspect that, that Mr. Vasan is talking about. Most of these people who get radicalized, are already educated. They are engineers, doctors. Take, for instance, the latest case, where the NIA arrested a doctor from Bengaluru, highly educated, working for a reputed institution, and then he gets picked up for something like this. So, how do you deal with such kind of issues? I mean, Mr. Vasan spoke about identifying them, but when they work as lone wolves, when they work very secretively, not when they live double lives, doesn't it become that much more difficult to identify these people and try and engage with them?
Frank, Mr. Vasan made some very valid points. I concede that. He also referred to de-radicalization program being launched by the Western countries. Here I would like to add that nobody understands Islam better than India does. Western agencies have no clue. We are better equipped, we know. You see, and I don't think it's correct to compare the situation in the Kashmir Valley with the south of India. Kashmir Valley is totally different. You see, so I don't think we should apply those yardsticks here. Yes, educated people have been inducted to start with school. Yes, we have to reach out to saner sections among the Muslims. See, in Kashmir, let's go. There was a very long tradition of Pir Muridi, followed by the Barelvi sect of Islam in India, which has been swamped by the Wahhabis and by the people who believe in no Pir Muridi. You do not go to a Pir Mazar, you don't offer anything, you just do your namaz, you remember Allah, He is the only one. So it's not easy. See, it's a highly specialized task, I agree. It cannot be started by teachers themselves. It's a very highly specialized area of covert intelligence operations, which is easier said than done. ISIS hold also is on the wane. You see, world over, except for pockets in Syria and maybe some other few countries, it has not been as radical. ISIS hold is Islamic State is losing its grip. So we have to be very alive to the situation, keep our eyes and ears open. The police stations can definitely help in relating telltale signs of radicalization in their beats. That's the starting point. You cannot superimpose central agencies to start operations without having leads to be provided by the beat police constables everywhere. You see, Karnataka, yes, it is the IT hub. So they look for, they are doing fishing for potential converts to radical Islam, and the perception may be wrong that the Muslims are not being treated. It's a misconception. But this misconception has to be removed by reaching out to those sections and explaining and showing them how the Muslims have not been wrong. It's a good thing that we have been able to link. We have been able to find linkages with the few cases of arrests in Karnataka and also in Kerala. There's a need to be much more vigilant. Unfortunately, like in everything else, politicalization has taken its toll, even in this process of radicalization of Islamics.
Things that people actually have to go through when they go there.
Frank, I think if we actually look into the people who have been apprehended over the years, I think their stories need to be told. And once their stories are told, it will be a very great demotivator for the rest of the population to join organizations like the Islamic State. Now, it looks very romantic, that here is a young boy and he's fighting for a great cause. I mean, post-independence, we really haven't had too many causes to fight for, which is why the Anna Hazare movement was so popular when it did take place, because people are looking for that cause. They're looking for that romanticism, to make some meaning of their lives. Now, once that bubble is burst, I think that would be a very good step. And I think this has to be done not so much in terms of the newspapers and magazines, but I think by television studios, by the audiovisual media. That will really make an impact when those stories come out. The second point is just 3 points I want to give. The second point I want to give is, how radicalization takes place amongst the educated elite. Now, what has really happened, and this I have got from very, very close friends who are Muslims, who are very senior people, and with my interaction with them. Now, what happened is there is a very large group of people, they are well-to-do, and they just don't have time to teach their children. So the Maulvi actually comes to the house to impart religious education to their child. Now, when that religious education is being imparted, I think it is important for the parents to be present, but unfortunately, they don't have the time. And I've heard it from these very same people. They said, listen, we really don't know what this man is teaching our children. I think that, that is also a very big danger. Allied with this is when we speak of this particular case of this doctor who got radicalized, he's a medical, I think he's an eye specialist, he's 28 years old. Now, if you have noticed, most of the people who are actually getting radicalized are the people who belong to the medical sciences or to the engineering sciences. These are absolute sciences where there is, we are working in binaries. Either it is 1 or 0. Either it is right or wrong. These are not the people who have been exposed to a composite education, of the social sciences. And whenever people have been their education has been really on technological lines, where there is no margin for error. Either you're right or you're wrong. Right? I think they are more susceptible toward this form. Now, how it is to be addressed? You see, the question is, de-radicalization only takes place amongst those people who have been apprehended. Now, but the question is, why are we coming to that stage? My whole argument today is, once a person has been apprehended, okay, he's been apprehended, we'll sort it out. And I must actually state very categorically that the investigative agencies and the intelligence agencies have done an absolutely brilliant job. There's no doubts about that, and that is the prime reason why the incidences have not taken place. Unfortunately, when an incident doesn't take place, we presume nothing is happening. But a great deal has happened. Just because it hasn't really exploded doesn't mean it hasn't taken place. So I think I still go back to my fundamental point. I think we need to be very careful of what we teach our children, all children, across the board, all religious communities. And that universal education syllabus, I think, must be the start point. It is a long-term process, yes. But without that long-term process, I don't think we are going to achieve anything very great.
Right. Time to get quick closing comments from all my guests now with the best way forward. I'll start with you, Mr. Vasan. We're talking so much about de-radicalization. We're talking about, controlling what is being taught. How do you actually control what is being taught? Because, the general also spoke about how even in rich families, there's probably a Maulvi who comes and teaches religious education. How do you control all of these aspects, or how do you control what's being taught in the madrasas?
No, I know this is an extremely difficult exercise, a big challenge. There are no easy solutions available. Now, one, as Janal said, there has to be kind of universal educational framework where every child is taught brotherhood, every child is taught respect for other religions, and we should ensure that wherever possible, whenever it comes to our notice, whether through the local police or through the intelligence agencies, state intelligence as well as central intelligence agencies, that something of this kind is happening. Those madrasas or any other institution belonging to any religion must be taken to task, and they must be, as I said in the beginning, it's an extremely challenging work, but this has to be done. Unless that is done, then you will continue to have these kind of things. And then the local police plays a extremely important role. Central agencies come later, and the investigation agencies like NIA, they come the last, because they're post-incident investigation agencies. They don't collect intelligence. They don't work on local people or local schools or local education institutions. So a lot of burden is put on the local police, and they have to have specialized wings in each district, especially in the states which are badly affected by these kind of activities, and they have to identify and they have to closely coordinate with central agencies and investigation agencies, so that whenever there is any suspicion, a quick action can be taken, preventive action can be taken, and God forbidden, if an incident happens, a thorough investigation takes place, and then people are told stories that what did they go through when they joined these kind of organizations. That would be a great motivating factor for people to avoid joining these kind of activities.
Absolutely. Mr. Chaudhary, best way forward, very quickly.
Yes, good points made by Mr. Watson. I will say vigilance. Vigilance is the watchword for freedom to be preserved in this country. And vigilance, I had drawn your attention to Kerala. And the two areas where it requires is, one is Mallapuram and the other is Kasargod. These are the two areas where vigilance is required. A lot of money is coming in from the Gulf countries. These two, we should focus there. You see, we must have focused attention to find out who are the moles, who are the people working for ISIS. Then about stories of woes who are taken to Gulf countries, let me draw your attention to the rich Arabs coming and carrying off brides from India, mainly from Hyderabad and from Mumbai. They have horror stories to tell after they return. These stories have to be told, and the social media, in addition to the electronic media and the print media, the social media is playing a very, very important role in this. We must keep a tab, at least a benign tab, on what is going on in the social media, and which is look for people who are trying to spread hatred in the name of religion. Across the board, all religions, anyone teaching hatred, we have to curb that. That is my view, and I don't know how we will be able to tell people not to allow the Maulvis to teach, because if you're not there, then what the Maulvi teaches, we don't know. Inside the madrasa also is getting inside is very important, difficult. So let's start with very practical, basic solutions. Look at these two areas, which are the hotbeds of, Islamic fundamentalism in Kerala, and focus attention with the help of the local police and the local intelligence agencies and central intelligence agencies. Very correctly put by Mr. Vasan, the NIA and central investigating agencies come in much later. And what as I said earlier, the beat constables have to be sensitized what to look for. So they have to be briefed by the central intelligence agencies. What are the telltale signs of trouble brewing or radicalization taking place in their areas? Thank you.
All right. And General, close the show with concluding remarks.
Right. In my view, I think besides all what has been discussed today, and I think there are very important points which have come out, I have just got three suggestions which I would like to give in addition to what has already been spoken. One, I think it is very important to co-opt the parents into this entire system. Now, the parents are the ones who do not want their children to get into terrorism, because they know what the consequences are. Now, this cooperation between the local police, as I mentioned earlier, and the parents, I think that is a very important step. And that confidence needs to be built, that it is the parents who must actually come to the police station and say, listen, I think I'm having a problem with my child. And in many cases where this has happened, the police have come, they have intervened, and they have averted what could have become in later years a great problem for that particular family. This is one step which can be taken, and I think should be encouraged more and more. The second, I think, is the people from the community are the best communicators. I am not a Muslim. So for me to preach to the Muslims is out of the question. So if you have to tell a Muslim something, it must come from amongst his own people, and it must come from amongst their Maulvis themselves. So how do we get, we need to train the Maulvis who can further spread a message across. And my final point on this is a question of our criminal justice system. You see, any time when such incidences take place, our lack of ability to actually prosecute people in a respectable time frame gives wings to people to actually continue with such activities. I think we need to improve our criminal justice system so that justice is delivered in a quicker time frame, which can act as a deterrence to people who may potentially join such movements.
All right. On that note, then, I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that people from the south of India travel a lot to West Asia, where they are susceptible to be radicalized. They are exposed to several other people there who come back and also try and indoctrinate other people in the south of India, is what the panelists are suggesting. De-radicalization activities need to be carried out on a large scale. It is a very difficult activity, but it has to be done. The investigative agencies are doing a fantastic job. All we need going forward is better coordination. all the entire criminal justice system needs to come together, share information, and try and put an end to this, is what the panelists are suggesting. All right, for the future, what needs to be done? Be prepared and take preventive action. Focus on the hotbeds and most sensitive and problematic areas. Be vigilant at all times. Tell the horror stories and let the people know that not everything is rosy and not everything is good. Also, we need to ensure that we be careful about what we teach our children, because in their formative years, what we teach them will go a long way. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.